I'm still working on it.
Yeah, we all need to follow you.
What about you, Stephanie?
I had a big birthday this year.
Very outspoken, very passionate about the things.
Why do we need this again?
I'm trying to understand. It makes no sense to me. But I'm not a Brit, so I can't.
Hey guys, it's your girl Basia, and it's Tuesday, so that means one thing. It's time for your Ask Basia video podcast. Today we're discussing infidelity. I can't begin to tell you how many relationships are affected by infidelity. According to a recent general social survey, men and women are likely to cheat. Men are more likely to cheat than women. In fact, they report that 20% of men and 13% of women reported that they had sex with someone other than their spouse. Estimates today find married men cheating at rates between 25% and 72%. They also stated that the numbers are even larger as many people are not willing to admit that they have cheated on their spouse. So ladies, don't get me twisted. Not because our men say that they're not cheating, it means that they are not cheating, because cheaters don't really admit that they're cheating. So, as Shaggy said, it wasn't me. That's the MO. But you don't have to take my word for it alone, because I walked with some backup. Today, I'm joined by Trinidadian American Dr. Yana Eastman, professor of communication, educator, scholar, entrepreneur, proud single mother, sister, aunt, and most importantly, woman of God. Dr. Eastman is at my top right. Welcome, Dr. Eastman.
Thank you for having me.
As usual, welcome back. We also have Dr. Stephanie Thompson, Jamaican and reproductive endocrinologist and infertility specialist at the Institute of Reproductive Medicine and Science at St. Barnabas in Livingston, New Jersey. She is an attending physician in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at St. Barnabas Medical Center and board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility. Dr. Stephanie Thompson always gives me a lesson in linguistics when she comes by. Okay. We are also joined by Trinidadian American Dr. Sadar Ross. Welcome back, an anesthesiologist and pain specialist who currently practices palliative medicine. She's also a classically trained vocalist who uses music to care for patients living with life-threatening illnesses. Dr. Ross's podcast, Prescription in Sound, is dedicated to promoting awareness of healing potential of music and is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Before we get into it, I want to remind everyone that the Ask Basia podcast is streaming on Spotify and iTunes, and the video version is available exclusively on basiapowell.com and YouTube/Basia Powell. Ladies, welcome back, because these are my regulars. Are you ready to get into it today?
Let's go.
Let's go. So we're talking about cheating, and that's across the board, because I know you women kind of biased, and you all like to pretend that women don't cheat. Well, these statistics indicates otherwise. So, do you think a man or a woman should stay with their partner after they have been cheated on? If yes or no, say why. Dr. Stephanie Thompson, I'm starting with you.
First, wow.
Yeah.
I think the general mantra or idea would be, no, you should not stay with your partner, but it's complicated. It's very, very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's probably such an individual situation for people. And I think that we can't judge other people for their decisions.
Yeah.
I would say, no, you should leave. But, we all know that sometimes there are children involved, finances, there's a whole lot that goes into it. And then I think it also depends on, is this person a serial cheater? What are the general outcomes of this?
Like you want to answer all my questions today. Take time
Right?
with me now. Go ahead.
But if my first gut response is no, I would not stay with the cheater.
You won't stay.
No, that would be my gut response.
No. So you won't stay with a cheater, but suppose the man is not a cheater. He cheated. Big difference, but we'll examine that lower
I
down.
don't think there's a big difference.
Okay. We will agree to disagree on
I'll wait
that.
until the question comes up.
Yes, we'll agree to disagree on that. Like you, my first instinct would be like, I'm out. But sometimes things can get very complicated, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was a woman of a particular age, much younger, I had different things to think about, so I could walk. Now, I ain't saying that I'm going to take it. I ain't saying, I just have to think. I might need to go to sleep and think.
You have to be strategic.
I have to think of an exit strategy.
Right.
If necessary.
Right.
So I am at a different stage in my life where I don't judge nobody based on what they want to do because I'm not seeing those figures. The exit strategy might have to be a little different depending on the scenario.
Right.
All right. It is very clear to me that men and women cheat for different reasons. So that's another thing we need to talk about. Dr. Eastman, take us to the classroom now. How are the motives different? And please explain, because sometimes, let's face it, women cheat as a payback. Because if I stay in, you get one. I'm just kidding.
Really? Just kidding? Really?
I ain't got time for that.
Right.
I've had friends on both sides. I have female friends who have cheated and they told me why.
Woo,
Right? And I have male friends who have cheated and they told me why.
Wow.
For the females, I mean, I know one friend in particular, she said her husband just, she wasn't satisfied in the relationship. She wasn't getting any attention from him. And she was getting it elsewhere. And she cheated a few times on him.
Wow.
And, as a friend and as someone who is morally opposed to cheating, it was really hard to hear her say it.
Yeah.
And, I understood. I understood where she was coming from.
We may have lost Dr. Eastman for a minute, but I just want to follow up on what she said. She's going to join us shortly. It proves our point, as I was saying earlier, that men and women cheat for different reasons. And I want to go back to Dr. Stephanie before I get to Dr. Ross, because personally for me, I remember when I was younger, I would be like, this is a no-no. And then I've seen friends, we're women of a particular age now, and I've seen friends go through stuff and came out better. Like, I don't want to say that Dr. Eastman is bad. So before I go back to her, I don't want to say that perhaps the best thing, sometimes something bad has to happen for something great to blossom. I think sometimes the relationships I know that evolve beyond the scandal, so to speak, or the painful experience, they were better off. They are better off, now than they were before. Perhaps whatever, they weren't getting it right. And at the point of recognizing that they can lose each other, it made them better people. So those kinds of scenarios that I've seen from the outside has caused me to question, hey, maybe look how they would have destroyed this family, this love, if one person did not decide to sit and work this through. So that was just my, while we waited on Dr. Eastman to come back, I wanted to extend the point that we're making initially. Yeah. So go ahead, Dr. Eastman. Oh, sorry.
Do you want me to go ahead? Or
yeah, you can go ahead and we go back to that question.
I totally, have seen what you're talking about, but I've seen it. Very, very difficult, because just like with any other contract you make with someone, or the trust that you have in them, whatever it may be, that trust is broken.
Yeah.
Whether, it's cheating, whether it's finances, whatever it may be. I think you have to be an incredibly strong person, and both of you have to be incredibly strong to really work through something like that to come better. very hard.
It's very hard. I'm not saying I can do it, but we'll get to that later on. So back to Dr. Eastman. Dr. Eastman, you were defining the difference between your female cheaters and your male cheaters.
Yeah, so the female one was tough because, I'm all pro female, pro woman. So that was tough because as a friend, I felt like I had to support her.
Yeah.
And like I said, for her, definitely it was about attention, the husband not meeting her needs, never having time. He's meeting with everyone else except her because he was a pastor and she was a young wife, and of course, pastors meet with women throw themselves at them all the time. That's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, pastors don't throw themselves at women.
Listen, I'm only talking about it from my friend's perspective, okay? But anyhow, that was her perspective. Then from the male viewpoint now, with the man, the man is about the ego. It is about the ego at the end of the day. And myself, I had my ex cheated on me and, I lived through that experience, and if you ask him why he do it, he will tell you, he doesn't, he just, something came over him. Like, really? Okay, I'm trying to be fair, right?
Yeah.
So I have to be, but yeah, so the men, I think definitely it's a more ego thing. It's how they were brought up. So many things in their culture and their, and especially I think it's different for Caribbean men versus men from different cultures. I don't know. That's a whole different discussion.
I want to get into it. How is it different from a Caribbean man from men of different cultures? Because I know African men, I know European men, and I know Caribbean men and American men, and they're all cheaters and different forms. I'm one of those people who believe any man can cheat on you. I'm just telling you all, I'm keeping it real. I'm married to a man, but any man who has the opportunity of not being found out will cheat on you. Receive that.
No marriage is a fair proof.
Well, we're going to you, Dr. Ross. on that note,
no marriage is a fair proof.
I honestly,
completely a fair proof.
I think Dr. Ross knows my perception about that, where I believe every man has, I don't care, you say it's over the pastor there? No, every man, if he can get all clear, most men not cheating, yes, because they, and don't believe that a man could love his wife. He cheats because he didn't love his wife. That has nothing to do with it. He lies because he loves his wife, right? But a man will do what he has to do if there's a chance of him not being found out. That's just, nobody's taking that away from me today on this channel. I said what I said. Okay.
If you love somebody, if you lie to them?
I'm sorry?
You love someone if you lie to them?
Yeah, because you're not, that is not the demonstration of your love, not the lie. The demonstration of what you're doing is caused by a different problem. But you can be somebody who love your entire family. Okay, put yourself aside. He loves his children, but he's doing something to disrupt the home because there might be some form of addiction, some emotional problem, some ego issue. He has no job. I'm not making excuses for men. Don't get me wrong. I ain't got no problems up in here because I'll be packing, I'll be leaving. You'll have the worst pandemic you have ever experienced since 2020 if things not right up in here. But I'm just saying it as a moderator and I'm being factual. I'm not one of those women who will sit and say, I remember somebody, and I'm sorry, I'm coming back to you, Dr. Ross. But you see, Dr. Thompson is pulling my strings today, and I need to deal with these things.
And I'm going to pull it again, so keep talking.
Pushing buttons.
I know. I went to university with a girlfriend who's now deceased, who looked at me in my two eyes and said to me that her husband would never cheat on her. And that said husband, who presented himself as a lamb, not of God, but a lamb, he ended up cheating on her with an 18-year-old girl. It took her so hard, she ended up being diagnosed with cancer. And so I am not somebody who's going to say, hey, this man will never do this. Never is for God.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying. I believe every man is capable. It's just how they're made up. Now, how we handle it, Dr. Steph, you and I might be handling it the same way, you know. We on the same part, you know, going at different rates, but we on the same part. One of us is strategic and one of us have to watch your net worth and divide it and decide, hey,
is it worth it?
Is it worth it right now? I'm being honest, when I was 16, I could talk nonsense and say, I'll even out nothing at $0, right?
Absolutely strategy.
No. My children are not going to be poor. Dr. Ross, over to you.
Yes, my dear.
Yes, so we're saying, does society have a different standard for men who cheat versus women who cheat?
I think so. I think so. It's interesting. Men who cheat traditionally have been kind of excused. It's been okay. It's more tolerable. It's more acceptable. You know, it's seen as a privilege of manhood, actually, to have to cheat. I mean, they kind of have this right to go out and you know, have relations with whomever they choose, especially if it's somebody of a certain stature, a certain class, who has, you know, the power to do it. Women who cheat are labeled as damaged sluts.
Yeah, they're loose.
Yeah. They are held to a different standard. There was a celebrity a few years ago, Reese Witherspoon, who was known as the American sweetheart prior to her affair with Russell Crowe.
I didn't know
Once that affair came to light, she lost that title. She lost that title.
I didn't know about that. You dropping some draft here today, Dr.
Right. Well, we talking plain. Yeah. So this was a number of years ago. I was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But you know, but she's not the only one. And this is the unfortunate double standard that we deal with.
It really is a double standard, and I have a problem with it. It really is a double standard, you know.
And this is why, and the studies are showing that more women are cheating, stepping outside of their marriage.
Yeah.
And this may be part of the reason why women these days are not having this double standard anymore.
So I would prefer to refer to it as addressing their needs outside of their marriage.
Yeah, you know, they're stepping outside of their marriage because they feel that, you know what, they too have sexual desires that are perhaps not being met within the marriage. You know, there may be other issues. They're dissatisfied with the quality of the relationship.
And they're tired talking.
or they were in a position, just like men, you know, to Dr. Eastman's point. They're in a position, they were somewhere on a vacation, and the mood was right, the time was right,
and
the opportunity was there, and nobody would know. Everything came together perfectly. Perfect set of circumstances, right? Presented itself, and voila.
Dr.
Eastman in some serious pain there. See that smile?
Well, listen, I think we're going to go down that road because if men cheat, women cheat.
But I said that at the beginning of this broadcast.
But I find it very sympathetic to the female cheaters, more sympathetic than to the men, than to the males.
Who, me? Well, okay, if you are getting that impression, it's simply because I realize that the majority of women, and I'm making up my own stats here, that 99% of women cheat as a reaction. They're tired of the BS. They're like, you know what? I talk. Now, I am not advocating and I'm not encouraging any woman to do that. That's not, my moral compass is not surrounded by that. My moral compass leans more to that of Dr. Thompson. I might be out of here in 2 minutes, you know? And I would be like, I'll get another you in a minute like Beyonce, but she stayed. Hello, after the lemonade, she makes some lemonade and stayed.
Yes.
Receive that because like me, she had to count.
Yeah, of course.
So that's all I'm saying, but I'm not more sympathetic to the woman, Dr. Eastman. That's not true. That's not correct. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that sometimes these ladies are talking and sometimes they tired take what we call in the Caribbean, in one part of the Caribbean, they tired take the horn, or in Jamaicans would say they tired take the bun, and they're like, you know what? I ain't going nowhere. I'll go find a man. Or woman, you know.
Right, depends.
It depends, you know. So I am not encouraging. I'm just analyzing. I just want to make myself clear. But I want to go back to my dear friend, Dr. Stephanie Thompson, who's sat like a cobra in the corner there. And this is specifically for you. Your name is by the question because I just know that you were coming to say this.
Oh, boy.
Okay. I believe it would be difficult for me to proceed after I have confirmed that infidelity is taking place in my marriage, right? So I'm coming out now. I'm saying what I have to say. Mind you, I am the first person, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, to encourage anyone to work on their marriage, and that cheating should not be a deal breaker. However, I think I am a little different because I'm a straight case of, how do I put this? Never mess with a woman whose father was the first man to break her heart. Yeah, you feel me? And that's me all over. Because of my own childhood experiences, I know how to overcome a broken heart real quick, real fast. And Dr. Stephanie Thompson, clearly from what you've said, cheating is a deal breaker for a marriage or relationship. Mm-hmm. Having said what I just said, the floor is yours.
How do I follow that? No, I think it's a very individual choice. As I said at the beginning, I don't think you can pass any judgment on anyone's situation because, to your point, you don't know what is happening in someone's relationship or home or marriage, right? So really is a very private, personal situation. But that being said, what I was kind of alluding to is, breaking trust. It can happen in so many ways, and cheating is one of them. It's one of the more major things. And, it gives me the question of, why do you lie to someone you love? Why would you hurt someone you love, including your children? We are all human, but this, especially for serial cheaters, these are behaviors that are wrong. So if you're trying to forgive someone for something like that, that takes a lot of work and self-reflection on both parts, which is why I think, it's extremely difficult to do that. To say that you're lying because you love someone, I just don't think is acceptable.
But when you talk about, when we start to use terms like serial cheater, etc., we're leaning towards recognizing an addiction, correct?
Yes.
So I must ask this question: are we suggesting that for better or for worse, we leave our partners if they have an addiction issue? All there are different types of addiction. There's gambling. Right. There's alcoholism. Thank you, doctor. The doctors can list it. There's drug addiction, other kinds of genetics. Right. So do we just walk out because of that? You might be like, well, that's alcohol, that's not a woman. So one is tied to our ego and it deflates our identity as a wife, right, more, I guess. But if we were to look at it clinically, I'm getting back at the doctors now. If we were to look at it clinically and put the work in first, because I have always said, and I support this, being that girl whose heart was broken by a man years ago. So it's a little harder for me to overcome things. It don't mean that I don't know the right thing to do. The right thing should always be to try and fix it. And if it can't be fixed, because remember, we're talking about husband and wives here. If it can't be fixed through intense therapy, like any addiction or whatever, then we just, you know.
Well, I think there's a difference though, because there's sex addiction, and then there's someone who has a mistress that they're continually cheating with, right? So.
Oh, well, I was going to break that down too. Right. Those are two different things. Because somebody can have a mistress and not be a serial cheater. Hello.
Right.
A serial cheater is somebody who has numerous.
Exactly. Which is more of an addiction, to your point. But I think that this addiction.
But I don't like the mistresses ones, but we're gonna get to that.
Okay. Well, I think that it's very easy to separate the two in my mind, because alcohol and gambling clearly have nothing to do with you as a wife or as a husband, right? That's an issue. And whether the cheating does or not, it absolutely is a reflection on your identity. So I do think that is a different category.
Yeah.
That would require even more work than just a general addiction.
Yeah. So before we get to the mistress, because that's a whole different ballgame, I'm going back to Dr. Eastman. Do you feel that a good man can be unfaithful? We can get to the mistresses here. Even pastors are cheating these days. And there was one a very popular church, I forgot the name of the church. I saw it on the digital news media, was it last week? Another pastor, again, had to step down. I think it's the same, I don't want to call names and be sued, but the pastor before had the same issue. And again, caught having a mistress or whatever, and he apologized and he stepped down. I mean, this is a man who's relating the word of God. And do you think that a good man could make such a mistake and cheat without being a serial cheater or whatever you want to call it is cheat? Do you think that, Dr. Eastman?
Of course. I mean, one of the things I told my husband at the time is that I may cheat on you. And if
you said what? You said what?
I told him, I said, I may cheat on you. And if I cheat on you, I expect that when we get to that bridge, that we walk through it. The same way if you cheat on me, when we get to that bridge, we walk through it. I was very upfront about it. Because I'm human. He's human, I'm human. I'm not setting out to do it.
Yeah.
But,
it's got to be met.
And that's why when he cheated on me, I purposed that I'm going to work on my mind. And I set out to do that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it takes two to make a marriage.
Yes.
And if that other person is willing, then you can make it. Because again, I have friends whose parents went through that exact thing and still together 20, 30 years later.
I know numerous people like that because they did work.
It's not impossible. But I said that from the beginning. So, I mean, I'm okay. It happens. A good person or quote unquote good person could cheat.
Yeah.
And, you move on.
Yeah.
Sex is just one part of marriage. It's not the entire part of marriage. It's one part of marriage. And
I like how you put it that way. That helps people like me who walking on the same road like Dr. Stephanie Thompson. It helps me to process it in a healthier way. Dr. Ross, I
was just gonna add to something that Dr. Eastman just mentioned. It's interesting because I've been reading some work from some of these renowned relationship therapists, couples therapists, and what they talk about is exactly that. That we should be able to have these kinds of discussions with our partners, right? We should be able to be so open and vulnerable that we approach our partners when we are being tempted by someone or when we feel a desire to step outside. It's a difficult thing to do because Lord have mercy if my husband ever comes to tell me that he thinks that he's thinking about doing something like this.
I'm not doing that.
But one of the therapists actually talked about someone who came to him saying, you know what, Doc?
We're having some difficulties.
She's frozen.
Yeah, we're having some difficulties, and that was going so juicy, boy.
I know.
But I want to continue until she comes back in. I am not doing that. I am not having any conversation. What about you, Dr. Thompson?
I think it's a great idea because you know what? That goes back to my point of don't lie. I would rather you confess than try and hide it. I don't think I could get over the lie.
So if your partner comes home and he said, honey, I messed up. I
find that much more respectful.
Yeah. I think that might be, I don't want to encourage anybody and give anybody any ideas.
You're never going to.
But it is definitely a better approach, a more responsible approach. So I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but it's a more responsible. Welcome back. That was going to, listen, that's like this. We're like, this was juicy.
So sorry. Continue. He said it. Oh gosh. Yes. If I may continue.
Yes.
This client said he was having this struggle. And what the counselor said to him, when you got married to your wife, the expectation was that you had this contract, you made this vow, right? Mm-hmm. You both made the declaration that this was going to be a monogamous relationship, correct? Mm-hmm. Because if it wasn't, then that's another story. If it was an open relationship, then that's something else. Yeah. But if you both understood that sexual exclusivity was expected, then you made a contract. And you are now attempting to renegotiate the contract. Mm-hmm. This is what you want to do. So I suggest that you go to your wife and you let her know that you would like to renegotiate the terms of your contract. Uh-huh. Well, he did that. I don't know how many men would do it.
So, and she renegotiated the contract with him?
Absolutely not.
Oh.
Absolutely not. Well, what she did was just, she broke down. She just lost it. She was devastated. And just that, just seeing that before committing the act was enough for this client to say, you know what?
To catch himself.
This is not worth it. Yeah. This is not worth it. But the other point I want to make with regard to what Dr. Eastman was saying, she said to her husband at the time that she could cheat on him too. Well, if that had happened, the marriage would have been over probably right there and then.
That's right. That's right.
They can't take it.
I asked him, I said, would you have done what I did for you post the affair, like stayed with you working on the marriage? Because he fell apart. Now, we often think that the cheating partner is the one that is stronger and is impervious, but he was falling apart, right? And I in post conversations, I said to him, if I had cheated, if I was the one who was unfaithful, if he would have stayed with me, he said, no way.
Yeah, and the statistics bear that out.
Yeah.
If counselors say if a man has cheated, there's a 70 to 80% chance that the marriage can work. If a woman cheats, 15%, 15 to 20%. That is the way the coach.
Well. I am saying right here now on this platform, anybody who think it's the right thing to do to cheat on more. You know what?
Okay, you're calling names?
On more, right?
More.
Yeah.
More. Anybody have a name?
No, anybody. I'm not highlighting it on Facebook. Anybody, here's the deal. If you think cheating is a thing and cheating is in fashion, let's go. Okay. No, but on a serious note now, should I want to ask this question, and you know what? I'm going to Dr. Thompson. First, I'd like to rile up Dr. Thompson.
Oh gosh.
Dr. Stephanie Thompson. Should we also blame the other person for who's cheated with the spouse for the infidelity? Especially, I would imagine the person seeing a tan line, on the ring finger. If not the ring, they're seeing a tan line. Because I'll tell you this, and I know this for a fact because I've been out here in these streets long time. That some women, some side chicks, they don't want your role. They don't want to wash and cook and iron and clean house and go through hard time. They need their bills paid. They really, really enjoy having a sugar daddy, but should this person also carry blame? And this is for Dr. Thompson and everybody else, because I want to hear what you all have to say, but I'm going to Dr. Stephanie Thompson first because I like to rile her up.
Of course, they should carry blame.
That's right.
Now, there's no question about it. Now, are they going to be involved in the work afterwards? Like, do I think you need to confront that person? Yeah, maybe once. But after that,
I like this Jamaican.
Whether or not you want to keep him, you need to say something at some point.
Yeah. So you think that you need to hear from that person, like, hey, what's really going on here? Because it's your husband or your wife. You want to hear from that person.
Yeah, we would have a one-sided. I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
Oh, you have. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have to say what.
And then I'm done, and nothing else needs to happen after that. And then whether or not the work I decide to do or not is on my own. But they will hear from me.
Well, they will hear from me, but I want to hear from them, and I'll tell you why. Because I've lived long enough to see a few things go down, but I believe that if I don't hear from that person, I wouldn't have full recovery.
Right. I agree.
I don't want nothing, because you see, a gentleman in my life, a very mature gentleman in my life, once told me, right, that a very experienced cheater, by the way, that a woman normally calls you when you're a wife and tell you that, yeah, your husband here, you know, he by me, when the relationship is over. They don't call you before that.
Right.
They call you when the relationship is over.
Right. Because they're scorned. Yes.
Because they now want to come and mash up your because men don't cheat because they want to leave their wives, you know.
No.
When a man wants to leave his wife, he leaves his wife.
Right.
Men cheat because of all the reasons.
She exactly knows what's up.
Yeah. So I want to know everything. I want you to come and tell me everything. Yes, he said this about you. He said, I want to hear everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
because if I decide to stay with you, right? You better sleep with one eye open.
Yes, amen to that.
But the thing is, there'll be nothing else for us to revisit if I choose for us to heal.
Right.
I want to know everything, because I will always go forward feeling as though there's some things I didn't know. That's just my.
No, I hear you. That can happen in one conversation.
I have to get that.
Yeah.
One conversation. Don't call me back again. Lose my number.
One time.
How about you, Dr. Russ?
I don't necessarily know how helpful that will be for me personally.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily know that woman could be dirty and nasty and vindictive and stink. All of the above. I should trust her to tell me the truth after she went with my husband.
No,
Another good point.
I'm not seeking truth. I didn't say I was seeking truth.
Well, why then call her? No. I'm not calling her to get her. She doesn't have to say anything. If I have something to say, I'm going to say, but I don't need to hear from you.
Nah, you see, that's where you and I disagree, and queens can disagree and move on.
Yeah, because I don't trust her.
I don't care. I am calling her because you see, the only way you kill a tree is from the root. If I need to deal with my situation, I kill in that tree. And I want that woman to say every single thing that needs to be said. So when I move on with my life or you, I ain't leaving nothing behind. The tree dead.
I don't trust that girl.
He's
the one to get the he's the one to get the brunt of my ire. He's the one to feel the brunt of my ire. Because I made the vow to you. I made I took the vow.
That's why I need my facts. So when I dishing it out, you understand? I'll be like, you know, that's what you remember when you didn't touch it?
She can't help me.
Oh my God, you guys! We're joking, but we're serious. But yes, Dr. Eastman, how about you?
So I spoke to the woman.
Oh dear.
Okay.
Right? And you're right. She called at the end of the relationship.
Of course, they always call at the end.
He had no intention of leaving. I left him. Right? He had no intention, none whatsoever, none. And I remember all the gentlemen saying, you know, men cheat. One of the reasons, and he was a serial cheater. He said to me, one of the reasons men cheat is because they're insecure in their own selves and insecure in their ability to satisfy their wives. And he said, years after all the cheating that he has done, he realized that he couldn't satisfy his wife, and he went outside for that. And now he's out with his wife, and he realized, well, of course, she's a great woman, right? And my ex had no intention of leaving. And I guess the young lady realized that when, you know, at the time or whatever. But it wasn't necessary. The conversation with her wasn't necessary. Like, Dr. Russ, my ire would be at him. Because he made that choice. For all intents and purposes, she was a good person. And I really, personally, I had no intention of meeting her on the road and throw down raise up my dress.
No. We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Right.
And he will get the brunt. He's getting 150%. But I need my 10% facts to do it.
Well, sometimes the things we may hear, you may not. You can't unhear. And
that's
I think that there are things that you and him need to deal with
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I think that's probably more important.
I stand by what I say. I want to hear what you
Oh my gosh.
One of the things I wanted to that shocked me when I was doing this research for this podcast was the fact that I thought that infidelity would rank very high in terms of the divorce rate, and it actually wasn't in the first. Well, at least the sites that I got my stuff on, it wasn't in the top 10. You know, there were things like communication was the number one, which didn't shock me, because I guess once communication breaks down, everything else happens. You know,
Right.
Financial problems, which was not the case of Bill and Melinda Gates, and they've just announced their divorce, which came as a shock to a lot of people. But clearly, she's out. She's the one who filed for divorce. You know, and other things like family issues, step parenting, difficult in-laws, sex problems, all those things ranked higher than the actual title of infidelity in terms of causing, being responsible for a divorce. You know, a cheating spouse was nowhere at the top of the list. Other issues like addiction, abuse, personality differences ranked a lot higher. So that was surprising to me. What do you think about that? Anybody?
Well, it doesn't surprise me because, as we know, there are women who cheat and their husbands decide to stay and work it out. There are men who cheat and their wives decide to stay and work it out. You know, in other cultures in particular, right? There's a higher level of tolerance to infidelity, right? Like in France, for example, the biggest reason for people to get divorced is lack of being appreciated, right? They feel as though, you know, So infidelity is not so much an issue in other parts of the world in particular. And here in America, where most people think it's morally wrong, clearly a lot of people engage in it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't break up as many marriages as you would expect. At least not in the short term. You know?
I guess they're not like us, Dr. Thompson.
But I do find a little bit hard to believe because I feel like all of those things listed, with the exception of finance, may lead to the infidelity. But I think when you're looking at those stats, is infidelity the one thing that caused it, right? Like if you were to ask people who listed it, it's not that infidelity hasn't happened, but it wasn't the one thing that caused the breakup of the marriage.
Gotcha.
I also think that people define infidelity in different ways. So that might be part of it also, the definition. The way I define infidelity might be different from the way someone else defines infidelity.
Correct.
Right?
Because a lot of people tie that to a sexual relationship.
Some men don't believe that emotional affairs are affairs.
And I think that's more dangerous.
Some women probably, believe that too. That emotional affairs don't really count.
From a female perspective, I think that emotional affairs are deeper than sexual affairs because it means that you formed a connection with that person that takes away from the connection you have with your partner, your wife or husband. I think that's more deadly to recover from.
And the therapists say that those are more difficult to treat.
Those are very difficult because essentially what you started developing is a second wife or a second husband on the side. you were en route to polygamy when you develop, because there's a lot of work that has to go into an emotional affair.
So then
who has time for that?
What's that?
Who has time for that?
Some people
be surprised.
What you said, Dr. Eastman?
I'm going to switch it around a bit. So if it's harder to deal with someone who has an emotional affair, then wouldn't it be easier to deal with someone who has a physical affair then? Because if the physical affair is more physical, and the man will argue it's a physical thing. There's no love there. I love you, I don't love her.
So right? I said it was harder. I didn't say it wasn't hard. All hard.
I hear you. But is it then, because then you're implying that it's easier to deal with one than the other?
No, I'm not implying anything, Doc. I'm not implying anything. They're all hard. And then for anybody listening, don't even try it. It's all hard.
Yeah.
No, but
people tend to have a harder time separating from the emotional of their partner.
Yes. Yeah, I would admit that. Yeah, it is harder. I mean, if I'm to admit it, it is harder because maybe that person ended up falling in love with that other person as well, and it becomes so complicated. It's
and do you know there are a few states in the U.S. I think up to a few years ago there were at least 7 states that sue the mistresses.
Yes.
Yes, I heard about that. I think is California one of them, because I heard about that.
I don't think California. I know North Carolina is. It's called alienation of affection.
Are you kidding me? Anybody knows if Georgia is?
That's what. Yeah, that's right. I don't
Is
know.
Georgia?
I don't know.
You can Google it. I mean,
I need to find out to put that in my little black book there. Right?
So there was this case of this lawyer who was dating another lawyer, and the wife found out, and of course accosted him, and he said he was leaving her, whatever. And then she went to her family lawyer and said, such and such is happening. And the family lawyer said, no problem, we're going to sue them. And she sued the mistress, saying that the mistress broke up her happy home.
Wow.
So whether or not that home was happy,
nobody knows.
Yeah. He was still married, living at home, right?
Wow.
With his happy wife, seemingly happy, because she could claim, I didn't know, right? I was happy. And the mistress had to pay.
Nice.
Interesting.
Nice. And on that note, that's a wrap. I can sit and talk about this for a few weeks, but it was so nice talking about it. I mean, I have to thank you, ladies, for being vulnerable. None of us want to talk about this, but it's life. We go to university to read for our degrees, etc. But there's certain things that only life can teach you. You feel me? And as women, we have to navigate all these things as we're on the path of success. We have so many things that we are only taught in these streets, and that's one of them: relationships, marriage, divorce, etc. So this was a good conversation. I totally enjoyed it, and I hope somebody out there, learn from it and send us, leave your comments. We're open. So ladies, thank you for joining me. This is the reason we created this podcast. As women, we have an obligation to lift each other up instead of being taught to tear each other apart because of race, color, class, etc. Despite our differences, we all encounter the same or similar experiences in our relationships. The only difference is our reaction to what we go through. At the end of the day, we all need to be careful about what we say about another woman, because it takes one to know one. It's your girl, Basia. I'm out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. See you soon. Oh, by the way, don't forget to follow these queens on their respective social media platforms. You want to tell them real quick, and it's in the article. Everybody's website, podcast, Instagram is in the article, but you can say it. Dr. Stephanie, we're starting with you.
I'm on Instagram at Dr. SM Thompson.
Dr. Ross?
On Instagram, Sidella Ross, MD.
Dr. Eastman?
So I am at successfulmom.home.blog on your screen.
All right, we're out. See you next week, guys. That's a wrap.